Now we're going to get into 5 breakout wide receivers that could really ultimately win you your league. And the first guy I got coming up on the board is Will Fuller. This guy is an absolute monster. Well, he was for the short amount of time that I got to see him play last year. He's bulked up to 185 pounds, which is about what I weigh, which kind of makes me chuckle. But he's entering year 3. Year 3 for wide receivers is known as the breakout year. And if this is a guy who has shown as much talent as he has on an offense that I think we can all agree with Deshaun Watson looked pretty good last year, right? They were the #1 scoring offense under Deshaun Watson. And for a guy who had 7 touchdowns and his first 13 catches, like, that's insane. That's 4 games, 7 touchdowns. That's a pace for 28 touchdowns. I'm going to take the under on that, but Will Fuller's a guy who could have just an absolute breakout season year 3 for the Texans. Okay, next breakout guy coming up on the board is Corey Davis. In 2 postseason games last year, 9 catches, 98 yards, excuse me while I burp, and 2 touchdowns, right? He should see more targets in year 2. He struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season because I think it just took him a little bit to get it going. And I think rookie wide receivers at times struggle to get it going. But this is a guy who I think the Titans ultimately started to get the ball more to because, well, he's really good. He was a top 5 pick in the 2017 NFL draft. He was the #1 wide receiver. He was a guy who I absolutely loved. And when you watch him play, you're like, this guy is super talented. And he played in only 11 games last year. And the Titans, I think, ultimately are going to be a better offense. But I want to know from you guys, which wide receiver will score more fantasy points in 2018? Type in 1 for Will Fuller and type in 2 for Corey Davis. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, throw in the comments below. If you guys want to type in their names, get at me. Get at me at Mitchell Renz 365. Tell me why. I'd love to hear what you guys think. More fantasy points, Will Fuller or Corey Davis? Okay, my next breakout guy, and this is somebody near and dear to my heart. I have such a man crush on Marquise Goodwin. Like, this is one of those where you look at a chick or a dude, or I guess I'll say that, like before 6 beers, after 6 beers, my beer goggles are always on for Marquise Goodwin because this guy is going to be an absolute monster, right? Right now in training camp, he's the #1 wide receiver for the 49ers. That has come out multiple times. Last year with Jimmy Garoppolo, he averaged 5.5 catches, 77 yards, sure, only 0.2 touchdowns, which is low, but he saw a whole bunch of targets, 8.6 a game. If you take that out for an entire 16-game season, that's 132 targets, 88 catches, 1,232 yards. Only Julio Jones, Keenan Allen, Antonio Brown are like the only guys who saw, and DeAndre Hopkins are the only guys who averaged that for an entire season. Marquise Goodwin, I don't think he's going to hit those projections, but for a guy who's blazing speed, 4.27 40 time at the combine, 4th fastest ever, he's going to see targets. He's going to be on a good team. I love Marquise Goodwin this year to break out for fantasy football owners. Next guy coming up, JuJu on that beat, and I wish I could do the dance, but I have to sit in this chair, unfortunately, and drink this beer. I guess that's not so bad, right? But the next guy I got coming up on the board, Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver, JuJu Smith Schuster. So, JuJu was a guy who I necessarily wasn't all that crazy about entering the draft, right? But right now his ADP is round 4, and for a guy who finished the season as well as he did, last 7 weeks, 7.6 targets. That's a pace for 122 targets. If you tell me right now I can get the Steelers wide receiver 2, probably the 3rd target behind a guy like Le'Veon Bell, but if I can get a wide receiver with 122 targets on that Steelers offense, yeah, sign me up for that all day. I mean, he was a guy, 58 catches, 917 yards, 7 touchdowns. What I love about the 7 touchdowns, he had 14 games, 7 touchdowns. He didn't score more than 2 touchdowns in any game. Dude was super consistent. He didn't have any super big boom or bust games. Super consistent. And for those guys that play Dynasty, he's only 21 years old. This dude is super young, just old enough to drink beer from DeVore, and like he is just dripping with talent. And he was picked, pretty high overall in the draft. But I love a guy like JuJu. I think he could come out balling because he finished the season really strong. 25 catches, 349 yards, and 3 touchdowns in December. But what was the biggest thing that went on with JuJu last year? So I want to know from you guys, if Mia Khalifa asked you out, what would you say? Yeah? Send it? Full send? Because she'd probably let you. Or type 2 for like, nah, hard pass. I'll be honest, guys. I'm in full send mode right now. So I would, Mia, if you're listening, let's send it. Okay, next breakout wide receiver I got for you guys, and it's my #1 guy. It's Stefon Diggs. And a lot of people, including Harris, before I even started the show, was like, is Stefon Diggs really considering a breakout? Like, can you consider him as a breakout wideout? And I'm going to say, yeah. He has a career high of 903 receiving yards. He's never topped 1,000 yards, and I think he's going to do it this year. He's got Kirk Cousins on his team. Kirk Cousins is a super productive quarterback who Doesn't always filter a lot of targets to wide receivers, but I don't know if he necessarily needs to. Stefon Diggs is a super talented guy, a really clean route runner, and I think he's going to mesh really well with the skill set of a guy like Kirk Cousins. Last year, 8 touchdowns for a guy like Stefon Diggs, 849 yards, right? He just got signed. They are going to filter targets to him, and I like Adam Thielen, but Stefon Diggs is more talented than Thielen. Sorry, he is. And the fact that they just paid him, the Vikings will 100% filter targets to Stefon Diggs. Okay, let's wrap up, because that's something I need to learn how to do. My 2018 breakout wide receivers for this year. We got Stefon Diggs at number 1, JuJu Smith Schuster number 2, Marquise Goodwin number 3, Corey Davis 4, Will Fuller number 5.